Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started? So hello, everybody. Welcome to Ask the Grant Writing Experts. I'm Dr. Meg Bouvier. You know me as the creator of your library of NIH grantsmanship courses. I have over 35 years of experience at NIH as an applicant, an intramural researcher, a staff writer, and now as a full-time NIH grant mentor. I've helped clients land over $500 million in federal funding, and I'm here to answer your questions. So grab a cup of coffee and let's get started. So if you're attending live, just a reminder that you're in listen-only mode. So feel free to start typing questions in the Q&A box. I think people have already started doing that, so that's fantastic. So today is a Q&A session, so just go ahead and start loading up the Q&A box with questions. If you are watching this as a recording, and more people are doing that both within our, our learning management system and on our YouTube channel, just a reminder that today is September 18th, 2024, and everything that we are discussing today is true to the best of my knowledge as of today's date, but things move very quickly at NIH, and you should always double check to make sure that nothing has changed. And of course, the information that we discuss here is never meant to replace the advice of a program officer. You should always talk to your program officer and your pre-award support office. So what you should be viewing in the library right now, well, we are smack up against the Cycle 2 deadline. So hopefully if you are applying for an R series or a K series grant, especially a new submission, you're not watching courses and you're putting the finishing touches on your application and getting ready to hand it off to your pre-award support office to do their due diligence and put the package together and upload it. If you are working on a resubmission with a November deadline, I just uploaded an updated version of master resubmissions. Most of you on this call have access to master resubmissions, so just be aware that there is an updated version of that. The other thing to know about is that for people, the Cycle 1 applicants, so that would be February, March 2025, of course, NIH is implementing new scoring criteria beginning with applications that have deadlines January 25th or later. And our next Ask the Grant Writing Expert session is going to be devoted to reviewing those changes. But for those of you who are writing for that deadline, I will be starting our live stream boot camp in October. So the minute I finish at the R01 deadlines, I immediately pivot and start launching my my R01 applicants for the next cycle. I'm a strong believer that in an ideal world, you should be spending, a good 3 to 5 months preparing your R01 application. So if you are an R level, R series applicant for the Cycle 1 deadlines, the first boot camp session will be October 17th, which is a Thursday. It's going to be at 2 p.m. Eastern time, and it'll go for 4 consecutive Thursdays after that. So October 17th, 24th, 31st, and November 7th at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So, and we'll do it the way we've done it the last couple of times, where the first session is on all the prep steps. The second session is on writing the specific aims. Third session, significance and innovation. Fourth session, approach. And it's meant to work in conjunction with the virtual courses. So you use the interactive checklist. You can have the e-workbook in front of you, so you'll be taking notes on the slides during the presentation. And for those of you who are K applicants, in the fall only, we also offer a session on writing the candidate section, and that will be on Thursday, October 10th at 2 p.m. Eastern. So I hope to see a bunch of you there. So, okay, so I had a couple of questions emailed to me, and there's one in the Q&A box. So let's start with the one in the Q&A box. And again, feel free to just start adding questions to the Q&A box. Does receiving a K99 R00 end ESI status, or does the R00 not count toward ESI status? I believe it doesn't. I believe that getting a K99 R00 does not count toward the ESI. I think you still retain ESI status if you have a K99 R00. There is a page that has eligibility for ESI. Let me see if I can pull that up quickly. ESI eligibility, NIH. And they list the mechanisms that would eliminate your status. And I'm pretty sure that that is not in the list. Let me see if I can find it quickly. I'm not immediately finding it, but if you just look up NIH ESI status and dig around on there, they'll actually list out the mechanisms that would cause you to eliminate, to lose your ESI status. I'm almost positive that you don't for the K99R00. If anybody knows definitively that it doesn't, let us know, but I'm almost positive that it doesn't. Okay, so let's see. I had a couple of emailed questions. This one was, I'm advising a PI who's prepping an R01 resubmission. I know it's an age-old question, but she asks, and I'm reading this one first because this is definitely an age-old question. So the applicant asks, reviewers 1 and 2 scored the proposal very differently. Apparently 1 did not understand the technical parts, but reviewer 2 does. Is there something we can ask the PO about the assignment for the A1 resubmission, like getting someone like number 2 as the primary reviewer? So first off, this is not a PO issue at all. The program officer oversees a portion of the NIH extramural funding portfolio. I think this person actually meant the SRO, which is the scientific review officer, who is an employee of the Center for Scientific Review and oversees a given study section. So I think they misspoke and meant to say SRO. So the person who sent this had the right answer. She said, my initial advice to her is that she may wish to consider adding to her assignment request form the types of expertise needed to understand and review her application. Given that reviewer 2 got the technical aspects of her methodologically oriented application, she doesn't think asking the SRO for an ad hoc reviewer is necessary. Is there any other counsel you would provide in this situation? Nope, you nailed it. So basically, you can't, there's no world in which you can ask for reviewer 1 not to be part of the resubmission review, because you don't have a reason to. You just have a difference of scientific opinion. In your opinion, the person didn't get the technical aspects of the project, but that's considered a difference of scientific opinion, and you're kind of, you can't ask that person to recuse themselves. There's no world in which you can ask that reviewer 1 not be part of the review. If you feel that this is the right study section, and it sounds like that is the case because reviewer 2 did understand. So like, obviously you could consider a different study section, but then if you're writing it as a resubmission and it goes to a different study section, that doesn't look so good. Technically it's allowed, but it doesn't look so good to the receiving study section that you've switched. Often when people decide to switch study sections, they retool and put it in as a new A0 to that study section. But given that this person does want to stay with this study section, and they can't ask for reviewer 1 not to be a part of it, that is exactly the advice to give, is that on the assignment request form, be really clear, really concrete about the types of expertise that need to be represented on the panel in order to get a fair and impartial review. And there really isn't much else that this person can do other than that. Okay, another typed in one for today. My ESI will expire in January 2025. Will my ESI status deems expired for the submission to the January 2025 cycle? I think there's a typo in here. So I think what you're asking is if you submit like for the February 5th deadline, can you do that with your ESI status? Is that what you're asking? There's some kind of typo in here, so I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, but if your ESI status expires in January and you want to submit for the February R01 deadline, upload early. That's the answer to that question is, and I don't know how early you can upload. I've never had an applicant really push the envelope on that. I've seen people upload a week or two early in order to take advantage of the ESI deadline. And again, always check with your program officer about a question like this. But that would be, I think I'm answering your question, but if I've somehow misunderstood, there's some kind of typo in here. If I've somehow misunderstood, please clarify for me what your question is. And then while we're waiting for you to respond to that, I'll go to another emailed question. R01 submission in January 25 with the expiration of January 25. So would you suggest to initiate the early submission? I would upload a few days before your ESI status expires. If you can do that, that would be the advice. So, you definitely don't want to, let's say your ESI status expires on January 15th. I'd probably upload on like the 12th or 13th just to be on the safe side. But as long as you upload while you have ESI status, your application will be reviewed as an ESI. So let me know if that answers your question. How can we find who is the PO if the study section is totally new? So again, I think there's some confusion about the difference between a program officer and an SRO. So program officers are not tied to study sections officially. So study sections are run by scientific review officers or SROs, and they are employees of the Center for Scientific Review. So I think what you're asking about is how do I find out who the SRO is? And and just so people know, study sections come and go, they merge, they disappear. So they're constantly being evaluated. And I think every June, the Center for Scientific Review does like an evaluation of the study sections, and they look at how many applications are going to them. Sometimes they get so many applications, they split them in half and you have an A and a B. Sometimes they're just not getting applications and the study section disappears. So just because you've submitted to a study section in the past doesn't mean that it still exists or that it still exists in the form in which you knew it. So in this case, this is a person asking about a brand new study section. And I'm wondering if you know which IRG it belongs to, because sometimes you can ask the person who oversees the IRG who the SRO is. How do you know about this study section? Is if there's nothing, like, is it, oh, here's a whole bunch more information. I emailed the SRO and she emailed me back and said to look at Matchmaker, but of course this is a new study section. Thank you for reaching out and for your interest in IMHA. Unfortunately, as an SRO, I cannot give guidance on panel suitability or other advice regarding the submission process. Well, that's crap. They do that all the time. Like that. Of course they can. They SROs do that all the time. SROs only serve as contacts to applicants during the review process, and that is limited to post-submission material and information relating to, okay, so this person is playing by the book. Your PO is the best resource for this type of inquiry and to help navigate panel requests. If you do not have a PO yet, go to our Matchmaker site, enter an abstract or some keywords, take the similar, ultimately assignment decisions are made by the Division of Receipt and Referral. So basically this person is just kind of giving you a cut and paste answer. But, if it's a brand new study section, I'm a little confused about what you're asking, because you asked how do I contact the SRO, but you started out by saying I emailed the SRO. So in a situation like this, I'm assuming that you kind of went through the process of the CSR ART search and identified a study section that is brand new. But if it's brand new, it should have a web page with an SRO listed. If you're not sure about whether and I'm still not entirely sure, it's the SRO you're looking for. So are you asking, how do I contact somebody about whether this study section is appropriate for me? Because that isn't a program officer question. Probably some SROs answer it as well. But so what exactly are you asking? because the initial question was, how do I find out who the SRO is if it's a new study section? But then your follow-up said, I emailed the SRO and they gave me all this other advice about finding a PO and asking their advice about it. Um, so if you could clarify what you're asking, that would be helpful. How do I request an ESI extension due to giving birth of children? So um, ESI extensions are something that you, the applicant, can put in an application for. I'm typically not involved in it, but I can tell you what I know about it. So my clients tell me it's a very straightforward process. They usually can do it, same day that they decide to do it. Your pre-award support office will often help you put in this request. I don't think there's a form. I think it's something that you yourself put together. The trick is to be able to document whatever information you're asking for. In your case, it's the birth of a child. If you're a woman, all you have to do, and you have birthed a child, all you have to do is ask for that extension, and it's an automatic 1-year extension. For people who did not birth their child, in other words, you've adopted or you're not the pregnant female, then you can potentially put together a request concerning like how much leave you took as a parent, your parental leave. And NIH sometimes gives some of that time back. I've heard kind of mixed feedback on how generous they've been about any of that. Yeah. So, and you put that together yourself, the request and upload it. I just don't know the mechanics of it. So, that's something to ask your pre-award support office. And I know just, if there's anybody on here is looking for ESI extension due to COVID related research interruptions, typically what you do is draft a letter for whoever let's say your lab was closed for 4 months, whoever your supervisor was at that time, your department chair or whomever that might be, your division chief, you would draft a letter in their voice saying, yes, that person's lab was closed during this time period. Please consider adding 4 months back to their ESI clock. And then you would send it to them. They'd sign it, put it on letterhead, sign it, send it back to you, and you upload that documentation with your request. So I hope that's helpful. Okay, let's see. So related to that early upload question that I got at the very beginning, an emailed question I got, our sponsored projects office will not submit applications more than 30 days prior to an NIH deadline, and we occasionally have a PI who requests to submit earlier than that to accommodate vacation or leave plans. From NIH, all I can find is this quite outdated post recommending that if submitting earlier than that to include a cover letter indicating the intended due date so they don't think it's a late submission from a prior cycle. Do you know of any new or different instructions for early applications? I haven't had a chance to dig around to look for any newer information, but my guess is if you didn't find it, I probably wouldn't find it either. And as always, I would ask the program officer. But my question to you is more, if you are uploading on behalf of the applicant, does the applicant have to be around when you upload? Because they're requesting the sponsored projects office to upload more than 30 days prior to the deadline to accommodate vacation or leave plans. Couldn't you have the whole thing assembled and then the sponsored project does the upload? Like, just hold on to it until you're within that 30-day window? Is that something that is feasible? Does the applicant actually have to be a part of that final piece? I don't know how it works in your office. And again, I get so many questions about the mechanics of uploading, and I can't speak to that because it's done differently on all campuses. But for some campuses, the pre-award support office actually does the upload, and it's handed, the application is handed off to them. And in theory, the applicant doesn't need to be on the premises in order for it to happen. So I don't know if that would be an option. If it's not an option, I would just ask the program officer, because I always worry that even if there is some guidance or some notice that was issued, that it might vary by institute or by mechanism, or even some of these things sometimes even vary by program officer. So I would always ask the program officer. So the person who emailed me the question is on the call and is following up. I guess the concern is if the SPO holds on to it, would only be if warnings came up at 30 days when the PI is out of reach. I see. So in case of error messages. So yeah, I guess I understand the concern there. And like I don't know. I would probably ask the program officer about that, but I don't know. Is the person really going to be out of pocket for 30 days? I guess if they're on sabbatical or something or parental leave, but are they really going to be completely unreachable for 30 days? It just kind of seems like if you're putting in a grant application, that's part of the deal. You got to be available for these kinds of things, right? So, ask the program officer, and otherwise, I would hold the applicant's feet to the fire. I mean, they're not vacationing on Mars. Surely they're available to answer questions, and anything can be done by email or phone call nowadays. So I would just kind of hold their feet to the fire and do it within that 30-day window, and that's that. Because I just kind of feel like one could imagine all kinds of problems, even if there's a cover letter, that there could be confusion on the part of NIH about which deadline you're targeting. And, it's a pretty unusual thing to do, to submit outside of that 30-day window. So anyway, that would be my thought for that. So are there other questions? I don't have other emailed questions. Let me look back in my archives and see if there are other things that people have asked recently. I could also look for that list of applications. Okay, so that person who asked me the K99R00 question, yeah, I can confirm that you can have an R00 and still be ESI. I'm going to drop that link in the chat for the person who asked the K99 question. So I'm putting in the chat a link to the applications, to the grants that you can hold and still retain your ESI status. And right at the very top is the R00. So yeah, I can confirm that. Okay, any other questions? We have 5 minutes left. Let's see, what else did I have? I think I did not answer this I think I may have answered this on the first Friday's call, and I'll talk about that as well. But a person emailed me asking about the 30-line project summary, which most people never ask me any questions about. Their question was, is the title included in the 30 lines? And the answer is no, it is not. But given that they asked about the 30-line project summary, I'm going to just mention a few things about it. When I work with an applicant, I always write that section, because sometimes I find that my applicants spend an inordinate amount of time writing those, and reviewers report, many of them report that they don't read them. So I don't know how mission critical it is to write a really good 30-line project summary. My sense is that a lot of those project summaries are making their way into other formats. So for example, if you are funded, it will appear on the reporter website. So the really important thing to know about the 30-line project summary is never to include anything that is sensitive information that isn't published. So typically when I work on a project summary, I take a person's aims page and I delete all of the details about the aims. I'll leave the aim itself, the one sentence aim, but I delete all the detail about the aim and how it's going to be conducted. I delete a lot of the details about the project in general and how it's going to be constructed. I'll give like the broad brushstrokes of, it's an interventional trial or whatever it is, but I won't give a lot of details about exactly what the intervention is going to be. I'll just be very general. And any information concerning preliminary data that are unpublished, I don't include that either. So once you start stripping that out, it's pretty easy to get it down to the 30 lines. And it consists primarily of all of the context for the project, the knowledge gap, the project hypothesis, the broad brushstrokes of the design of the project, and a lot on impact. So that's typically what I include in the 30-line project summary. You should not spend more than 30 to 60 minutes working on a project summary. It's not a really good use of your time as you approach deadline, just so people know. The other thing that I wanted to mention, which I forgot to mention in the beginning, is that we are also doing a new format, which is called First Fridays. So it is, not surprisingly, the first Friday of every month, and it is at 11:30 Eastern time for 30 minutes. It's very relaxed, so it is just Q&A with me. It's not recorded. There are no guests. There are no mini tutorials, and I allow people to speak. It's totally anonymous. People cannot see who the other attendees are, and I remind people not to give identifying information when they speak. But you can speak and ask me questions, and it's a kind of a more intimate consultation format. So, and sometimes I wonder if I should do that here as well, because it can be easier to get a clear sense of what a person is asking if they're speaking. So anyway, I invite people to attend that as well. So we're closing in on time now. So feel free to drop in for First Fridays. Again, first Friday of every month, 11:30 Eastern. You should have received an email to sign up for that, but if not, just contact me at meg@bouviergrant.com and we'll get you set up with registration there. Hope to see a bunch of you at the boot camp. The K boot camp is October 10th. The 4-part art boot camp starts on October 17th and goes for 4 consecutive Thursdays after that. It's ideal for people writing for the February and March deadlines. Check out Master Resubmissions, which is brand new. And what else have I not told you? I think that's everything. I think we've covered everything. So, and then the topic for the next Ask the Grant Writing Expert session, I'll be doing a mini tutorial on the new scoring criteria, because once again, the minute we get past the R01 deadline, my company pivots and starts working with the new R01 applicants for the February deadline. So we'll be looking at that. So I hope to see a bunch of you at First Fridays at boot camp and at the next AGE session. And otherwise, thank you so much for attending. You guys are great. I so appreciate your questions, and good luck on your October deadlines. Have a great week, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.